Hello, I'm Dr. Harriet Fraad.
And I'm Juliana Forlano, here with our podcast, Capitalism Hits Home.
This is a show about the intersections and mutual shapings of capitalism, class, gender, race, and all other aspects of our personal lives.
We aim to educate, activate, and even alleviate some of the burdens we all experience living in a capitalist USA.
We hope that this program serves you well, that it alleviates some of the burdens, and it's brought to you by Democracy at Work.
Hi, Harriet. I'm looking forward to talking about doing our show today. So welcome, everyone, to our part 3 of our 8-part series on the basic human needs that should not be commodified. Last week, we discussed water as a human right, and before that, heat. This week, we are going to be discussing food. How did something as basic to our experience as food get transformed into an instrument for profit? The UN has declared, the right to food is a human right. It's legal and clearly defined right. This is right from the UN, which gives rise to obligations of states. That means it's the government's job to reduce chronic undernourishment and malnutrition. The right to food is a human right. That's it. But that's obviously not how it works under unfettered capitalism. Capitalism turns food, a life essential, into a commodity to be sold like any other commodity. I don't know if you know the book, A Foodie's Guide to Capitalism, Understanding the Political Economy of What We Eat. It's by Eric Holt Jimenez. What he says is, and here's a quote, "It doesn't matter if the food is fresh, organic arugula, or a Big Mac, teff from the highlands of Ethiopia, or cheese whiz from Walmart. It doesn't matter whether you need it or not, whether it's good for you or bad for you, whether it's locally produced or traveled afar from where it was, corralled or caged or free range or led a happy life. If enough people want it and have the money to buy it, someone will turn it into a commodity and sell it." As I was looking into this topic, and I'm going to present a little at the beginning, and Harriet's going to present a little bit afterwards. One of the questions that came up for me is, why is food, there were so many questions. Why is food unaffordable to so many Americans? The United States is the richest country in the world still so far. It has 49 million food insecure citizens, and that includes 15.9 million children. And that figure was before the pandemic. I don't have the pandemic figures. Other questions. Why do so many gain weight and become obese? 50 million Americans rely on unhealthy fast food for the bulk of their diet, resulting in the epidemic levels of obesity we have, in addition to other health problems. Of course, the corporate media and other forces of capitalism would have you believe that it is a personal moral failing, while they're still at the same time sexualizing a hamburger on a TV commercial during the playoff game. I'm going to touch on the forces of capitalism that create this problem in a minute, but there are other questions. Why are fresh fruits and vegetables so much more expensive than soft drinks? Why do the vast majority of our agricultural lands feed, animals and make fuel for cars rather than make food for people when we have hungry ones? I don't know. There's only 3 companies that almost 3 companies in the whole world that almost entirely control the world's corn, which means that those 3 companies decide how much of each year's corn goes to make ethanol or sweeteners or animal food or human food. Some guys, I'm assuming it's guys somehow, at a conference table, well, probably in a Zoom room now, but these guys sit around and discuss how much food gets produced based on profitability, not on the amount of starving people we have in the world. And it's funny because they don't even think this way anymore. They don't even think that there's another way of living our values that asks anything beyond how much profit one can make. So anyway,
sorry.
Harriet, I'm sorry. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, one of the reasons they're uncontrolled is that they're allowed to be. They're allowed to advertise. They're allowed to do what's profitable rather than what's healthy and nutritious. So that because the shelf life of Cheetos, Doritos, and Fritos is far longer than fresh vegetables or fruits, that's what's produced and advertised on television. And that's what kids ask for because they're left home alone to watch television while their parents have to work and can't afford outrageous childcare and their schools are closed. And so we have an interlocking systemic problem. We have the problem that food is produced for its profitability in the United States, not for its health. And we have an additional problem now in that for most, most American children, the best, healthiest food they have is their school lunch, which has been continued, which is why 1 in 10 Americans are hungry now. And
Harriet, the school lunch is something that pains me greatly because it's not like an organic, healthy school lunch. The corporations have impressed upon the school districts to put a Coca-Cola machine. Why is that healthy? To put a Coca-Cola machine in the school, to have, milk with RGBH hormones in the cow. It's not like they give high-end food to public school children. So even though they're getting sort of, a meal, I remember my childhood days at school. The food was disgusting. Fried chicken bits with, it wasn't.
Yeah, most of it's thrown out.
Starvation, but it's pretty gross.
It is pretty gross, but for a lot of children, it's their only meal that's a balanced meal. And luckily at school, now closed, they can get milk if they have milk money. If they don't, they're often humiliated and shamed. But there really is no national provision of healthful food. The Nordic model provides healthful food for everyone. They really don't allow advertisements of non-nutritious food for anyone, as well as their salaries are much better, so people can afford to buy the fresh food. There aren't the food deserts there are in the United States in poor neighborhoods where they have things that keep forever, like soft drinks that rot your teeth and your insides, and like preserved everythings that are bad for you. If your only concern is profit, that's what you do.
Can you talk about what a food desert is, in case people aren't familiar with the concept?
A food desert is a neighborhood where there is no fresh, nutritious food, where you can't find fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's because those are poor neighborhoods and people don't have the money to pay for fresh fruits and vegetables because those prices are not regulated by anything but profit in our country. If you allow capitalism to go for its own agenda, and if you have the best democracy that money can buy, so your senators and congressmen may well never regulate food, then you really don't have healthy food in a poor neighborhood. Because the idea is what's profitable, not what's healthy, not what's nutritious, not what children need. There was a study done in which they found that the same nutrition, the same nutritional value is in a huge box of Cheetos and a half a cup of lentils that a Nigerian starving child would have as food. So that people have more to eat sometimes, but it's so inferior and so such a deficit in terms of nutrition and health that they go hungry. And that's why 1 in 10 is hungry now in the United States. That and they don't have the money to buy anything healthy and nutritious.
When I was looking up information about this topic, I came across an example of how capitalism affects healthy nutrition that I found very interesting. So there was a sharp rise in obesity in the US that began around 1980. And the immediate cause was that people began eating more food and therefore more calories. Why, you may ask? Genetics didn't change. What did change was the environment of food choice. At the time, the agricultural policies were changed to encourage farmers to grow as much food as possible. And so farmers responded by increasing the availability of calories in the food supply. They basically went to twice as much of the average need. And then this combined with something that happened on Wall Street right around the same time. This shareholder value movement happened around the same time, the 80s. Wall Street started to value companies on the basis of higher and more immediate returns on investment, not like long-term gains and yields, but like, what can you do for me right now? And food companies not only had to compete to sell their products in an overproduced food economy, but they also had to report growth in profits to Wall Street every quarter. So overproduction makes food cheap. Cheap food encourages the proliferation of fast food restaurants. People eat more food outside the home, which is shown to be, less healthy. The creation of larger and more caloric, obviously, food portion sizes. People in other countries make fun of us because we have these huge portions. And in this food environment, companies look for new ways to sell food. They put food everywhere. There was a time before this when food was not in drugstores or clothing stores or bookstores or libraries. And they also at this time, which I find totally disgusting, increased their marketing to children of foods and low income groups and populations in developing countries. They did pretty much everything possible to encourage overeating. And that is why we had such a spike in obesity starting in the 80s.
Yeah, and obesity in children leads to diabetes. It also leads to premature sexual development. It's a terrible thing for children. And it mitigates against physical activity. Also, because we don't take care of our food supply and have healthy, nutritious food and encourage people to eat, we have the most global food waste in the entire world. We discard more than 40 million tons of food a year. That's 80 billion pounds of food at $161 billion. What could we do about that? Well, of course we could do things. We could do what other countries do, either with the Nordic model that doesn't have the health problems we do, or the Cuban model. What we could do is have inexpensive, healthy restaurants, McDonald's, but healthy and inexpensive. And
I would love
advertise.
I'd love
Yes,
to just be able to go to a McDonald's and pick up something that's convenient after I'm exhausted and I got the kid and this and that. I'm sure people can relate to this idea and then you can't go out. Capitalism is set up so that if you're not functioning at your highest amount, if you're tired and you just need some food for your kids, you have to compromise on, giving them poison, basically, or not feeding
and
them.
they're so advertised. These children are such victims of advertising that if they're given the same hamburger in a McDonald's styrofoam or just plain, they say it's more tasty if they get the styrofoam wrapped hamburger from McDonald's because they're trained that that's better. And
Right.
so that you could also have a huge campaign advertising healthy food and making it available. Something that other countries do, like the Nordic model does it, and also Cuba and other places, is they have food trucks with healthy food that's inexpensive. Instead of crap.
Mm.
It's very, in the former Soviet bloc countries, they used to have healthy canteens at any workplace that had over 10 people that gave people dinners to take home to their family. Now, they gave it only to women, which was sexist, but they came home with a dinner prepared or with the ingredients for a dinner that they could easily prepare. That was another model for feeding people appropriately and healthfully. And it saves trillions of dollars in terms of diseases and dysfunction. But our country is geared to the profit of the few. There's two big employers, the two biggest employers we can think of. Walmart, whose CEO gets 2,000 times more than the average worker, and McDonald's, well, whose CEO also gets about 2,000 times more than the average worker, just a little under 2,000 times. And so that what happens is people don't have the money for the healthy food, and their jobs are exhausting, and they don't have the energy to go out and buy beans and boil them for a long time and do the whole thing. It's exhausting. And so that our profit motive has sapped that. Plus, both Walmart and McDonald's have organized ways that their employees can apply for food stamps and have the government compensate for their terrible salaries so that we pay them instead of insisting that those huge corporations that hire the majority of our workers pay their workers properly. You know, a McDonald's worker gets minimum wage on average, about $8 and something an hour. However, and at Walmart. In Denmark, where McDonald's is also fairly profitable, their workers get $24 an hour because that's mandated. We don't have mandates that are reasonable minimum wage and maximum wage laws the way the more civilized world does. And people have to look at that. That's why we're hungry. That's why our health
One of the things that disturbs me the most is the fact that corporations sit around thinking about what can be profitable. They don't think about who's hungry. And we store food in silos while people are starving because we don't want to upset the market. And that, then the way we produce the food also results in a number of other social problems. The animal and food industries are among the most exploitative in the world for both animals and workers alike. The industries have long hours, low pay, unsafe working conditions, you name it. They also tend to employ largely immigrant labor forces who are often deprived of their right to organize into unions because of their visa status. So, as long as big business runs the economy, particularly combined with weak regulation, animals are going to be brutalized, workers' rights are going to be violated, and that's all in order not to feed people, but in order to make a profit. And not to mention, I don't want to go on forever here, but for me, the heavy use of chemicals and pesticides are basically not only poisoning our food supply, but also our environment. 80% of the antibiotics used in the U.S. are on farms, which of course raise concerns about those antibiotic-resistant disease strains. Nature published a study that examined hundreds of trials and found that despite all the use of these chemicals, it only makes 20 to 25% higher yields than pesticide-free food. Now, who benefits here? Let's follow the money. The pesticide companies, Monsanto and Bayer, who now is Monsanto, they benefit from selling pesticides. You get the food and you eat it, and then you get sick, and then who has to fix you if you're lucky? Pharma. Pharma fixes you, and they make money off your ill health. It's like everyone is making money off of people's sickness and ill health. It's just a vicious, disgusting circle of it's like a death cult.
Well, what it is the interlocking aspects of capitalism, because in capitalism, you are rewarded for making money. Look at the Sacklers. They made $17 billion they made $37 billion off of opioids. And they were lauded all over the place. And they had the Sackler wing at the Guggenheim and the Sackler wing at the Louvre and the Sackler chair at all these medical schools. If you have money, people treat you like a prince. But they don't say, where did you get the money? Because in capitalism, money makes you a hero. They don't have programs. They have programs on lives of the rich and famous, not lives of the unknown poor. That is not on TV.
I'm going to do that. Let's make a YouTube channel. Yeah. Lives of the unknown poor. It'd be interesting, at least.
It would, but I don't know if they would want to pay for it.
You get the views. Yeah. Harriet, we're at the time where we do a little housekeeping and business. First, I'd like to ask folks who are watching that I'd like to hear your thoughts. So leave them in the comments if you will. We would like to hear your thoughts about how, if food was considered a human right, and not just food, but healthy, nutritious food, not antibiotic food, not crap food, not pre-processed food, but healthy food was considered a human right and was made available at either affordable or free prices, how would that change your life? Please put it in the comments. I'd really like to see how would that affect you on a personal level, your family, etc. I'd love to hear back from you. You're watching, obviously, Capitalism Hits Home. This is our podcast here, and we, as you know, we went to every week a couple of months ago, and we're happy to be here at that level. And the fine people who are supporting our work over at Democracy at Work have allowed us to keep going on a weekly basis because they see that people are responding. So I do want to thank everyone who is watching on YouTube, everyone who is sharing the links and supporting us by sharing. Leaving comments really helps. And also just want to thank everyone who has donated via our Patreon link. We're not fully self-supportive yet. So if you do have funds and you enjoy this program and you can help support us, of course, we would appreciate that very much. You can go to Patreon. It's patreon.com and then /capitalism hits home and make a monthly recurring donation there. That's the best way to donate for this program so that we can see that you're donating, for us. You can also leave us a comment on the YouTube page, but if you have other comments you want to leave, the email for that is info@democracyatwork.org. So thank you so much for everyone who's already donated. And now we're moving on to our letters part of the program. We are getting your letters. We are reading them. We are reading your comments. And please, if you're writing to us, let us know in the letter if it's okay if we read your letter on air and if we use your name or if you'd prefer to be anonymous. But I'm going to read one of the letters that just came in, and then Harriet's going to respond. This is a letter that came in from Nina Canaleo. I hope I'm getting the right last name. Nina Canaleo wrote us this letter, and I'm sure people are going to be able to relate. Hello. Love and hate your show. Love your insight, knowledge, and kindness. Hate part is how soulless capitalists are, that we even have to be talking about this. These every day, the suffering, death, poverty, and murder. I wish for a nationwide strike. That's the only way to stop this, but it's got to be nationwide. Everyone has to put aside their differences and come together for this. I fear it will only get worse faster than anyone can organize, and then it will be too late. I almost wish I didn't care so much because my heart hurts and it cries out very much hearing these topics. And that is from Nina Canaleo. Harriet, your response?
Well, I know you do too, Juliana. We have total sympathy for Nina's concerns. But I have hope. We don't have the organization yet to make a strike. But people like Kshama Sawant in Seattle, who's the head of the city council, even though she's a socialist and a militant, says, of course we can do it. When they don't give you $15 an hour because they're acceding to Joe Manchin, senator from West Virginia, get out on the street. Don't wait for the Democratic Party to say it's okay. They're making compromises. Get out and join. And I think in the United States now, we have more of a left than we have for 50 years. But we're all divided on different causes. There's healthy food, there's Black Lives Matter, there's the women's movement, there's the $15 an hour, a lot of totally worthy movements. But we need an umbrella organization, an American party that stands for us. 65 million poor people in the United States didn't vote. They didn't feel they had anybody to vote for or any incentive. Those are the people we have to reach. Those are the people they reached in Georgia to get them out. And they were there's 65 million white people. There's more millions of black people. But black people are getting activated in their churches and their communities. But we have to reach those people with our anti-capitalist message because TV is not going to reach them. And we have to unify under an umbrella of a national organization or party so that we have different primary interests, but we come together on strike for a better America that covers all of our concerns. Because look, they found $2 trillion, just under $2 trillion for a tax break for the very rich. And they almost found that much for everyone else, even though the very rich are 10% of the country and the super rich 1%, so that we can do it. And that's what makes me grieve less. In Joe Hill, the famous organizer, said, "Don't mourn, organize." So everyone get out there, do your part to create a unified movement, and we will win. And that will be a time of jubilation.
I agree with everything you said, Harriet. That's fabulous. And Nina, thank you again for the letter. We appreciate it. I also I'd like to add that it's important that you enjoy your life to the best of your ability today. We have a lot of big work to do, and the fact that you're even watching this program and becoming knowledgeable and being able to take in the information, even though it is very disturbing on a lot of levels, you're becoming part of the solution just by broadening your awareness and your ability to know everything that's going on. But don't forget to have a nice day. You know, we have to fight. We have to join with each other, as Harriet said. But at the same time, I have to wear my favorite socks because, you know what I mean? Just a little thing sometimes can reaffirm the humanity that capitalism tries to strip from us. So I putting that suggestion on the table too. Harriet, we're out of time again.
Sad. Okay, everyone go out in the sun because you'll love that too. But we have to say goodbye. Too bad.
Thanks. I know. Thank you so much for listening. The podcast is made possible by Democracy at Work, and you can support us again at patreon.com/capitalism at home. You can visit the organization at democracyatwork.info. That's where to go. And again, don't forget to subscribe. You can support us by sharing and leaving a comment. But Harriet, do you want to do the special thanks to our staff?
Yes, I really do. We are indebted to Brian Issam, who does all the technological work and makes this look good and sound good. And we want to thank the whole staff that works at Democracy at Work. And we want to just thank you all, our listeners, because you also make this possible and we inspire each other. Did I leave anyone out? Because if I did, say.
No, you got everybody. Harriet Fraad, that's Harriet's website. Harriet can be found on her website, harrietfraad.com. It's Fraad. I'm Juliana Forlano. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook and all the places there. Democracy at Work is also on Twitter and Instagram at democracy@WRK. Thanks so much for watching. Next week, we're going to be talking about the human right that people should all have outside of the commodification of the capitalist marketplace for shelter. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.